I am very proud and pleased to introduce my friend and our Senator, Tom Cotton. Tom, welcome to the show. Happy New Year.
Hey, Steve. Happy New Year. It's good to be back on with you.
Yes, sir. It's good to have you. So, Senator, there's a lot of Democrat communist propaganda, starting with Chuck Schumer today. And here on Sunday, a couple of them, the same old group, Scott Holliday and his gang, were protesting at the state capitol, telling us how illegal this was. It was just fentanyl, and there was no fentanyl. We're just going after their oil. And I know that you will bring the truth to the people, and that's what I want to do as well. So I appreciate you coming on to clarify some of these things. So let's begin with Schumer in 2020 was criticizing President Trump for not taking out Maduro, and now he's criticizing him for doing it, saying it was illegal. So there's such a history, Senator. If you can just get into a little bit about how this was legal and then the raid itself, I'd appreciate it.
Yeah, these Democrats are singing a different tune now than they were back then, Steve. Well, let me start out by just commending our incredible military and intelligence operatives. As Chairman Kane said over the weekend, the United States military and intelligence community are literally the only people that could have carried out such a raid anywhere in the world. I was speaking with President Trump a few hours after the operation, and he asked if I thought this was the best yet of the big operations over which he's presided in 5 years. Those, I would say, are the killing of the ISIS leader in Syria, the killing of Iran's terrorist mastermind in Iraq, the strikes against Iran's nuclear program last year, and now the capture of Maduro. And I said, they're all vital, and they're all bold and audacious, but in some ways you might have to say this is the boldest and most audacious of them all.
I would agree.
To go into a foreign country and to seize the drug trafficking, illegitimate communist dictator who's indicted in U.S. courts, and to exfiltrate him without the loss of American life is in some ways much harder than a raid to kill someone or airstrikes against the nuclear program.
Yes.
These operators are truly heroic. They treated this, Steve, like a hostage rescue. So they treated Nicolas Maduro as if he was a hostage to be rescued and protected. They repeatedly, General Kane said, put their own bodies in the line of fire between his Cuban bodyguards who were shooting at our troops and Maduro to protect Maduro so they could get him out alive, so he could be brought to the United States to stand trial for his crimes against our people. So I just don't think we can stress enough what an incredible operation it was and how much deep respect I have for the military and intelligence professionals who pulled this off. As for its legality, Steve, again, Maduro was an indicted drug trafficker. There was a $50 million bounty on his head. You don't get a get out of jail free card as a drug trafficker who's killed hundreds of Arkansans and thousands of Americans just because you're in Venezuela.
And when it comes down to it, Senator, it was the corrupt Department of Injustice, as I used to call it, under Biden. Merrick Garland and his gang are the ones who indicted him, and Biden put a initial $25 million bounty on him and did nothing.
Yeah, and you don't put a bounty on someone's head unless your intent is to capture them and bring them to justice. So obviously the Democrats wanted this to happen. They just now want to eat their cake and have it too. But you cited Chuck Schumer back in the day. Almost every Democrat this weekend has granted that Nicolas Maduro was illegitimate. He's a dictator. He's a drug trafficker. He repressed his own people. And then they immediately followed that with, but Donald Trump was wrong to capture him. They can't eat their cake and have it too. They can't say the world's a better place with Maduro out of power, which they concede, and then condemn Donald Trump for removing him from power in Venezuela. As for the legality, again, Steve, you don't get immunity just because you have seized power in a foreign country and illegitimately are running it if you're indicted in the U.S. courts. There is a direct precedent for this operation. It's what happened with George Bush when we invaded Panama in 1989 and captured Manuel Noriega. And if it's good enough for George Bush in Panama, it's good enough for Donald Trump in Venezuela.
And when it comes down to it, Senator, I'll throw this one into the mix, too. Going back to the Monroe Doctrine, which goes all the way back to 1823, and then President Teddy walk softly and carry a big stick, Roosevelt's corollary in 1904, set the precedence. And I'm going to go right to China and Russia. They were using Venezuela as a forward operating base in our hemisphere where they could menace our country. And it takes, about 20 minutes for a tactical nuke to fly from Venezuela into our country. So, yeah, I think the China factor is huge in this, too.
That's very big. Venezuela, to go back to Panama, Maduro is worse than Panama. Noriega was never really in league with Soviet Russia. Maduro has been in league with Russia and every other bad guy all around the world. Venezuela is obviously a bigger and more geopolitically vital country than Panama. And as you said, in addition to the drug trafficking, under Maduro, Venezuela had turned essentially into a crossroads and playground for every American enemy around the world. You mentioned Russia and China. There's also Iran and Cuba and Hezbollah. You name an American enemy, they had a foothold in Venezuela. Yes, you mentioned missile flight times. It's also importing drugs and terrorists and weapons into Venezuela that can then be trafficked north to use against us. And again, Venezuela is in league with all of these malicious actors. It's not like Colombia, where you have a left-wing president that always criticizes Donald Trump, but where we still have very positive military intelligence and law enforcement relationships. Or like Mexico, we have a left-wing president who occasionally criticizes President Trump, but certain territories in Mexico are basically no-go zones for their country. Mm-hmm. In Venezuela, Maduro was the drug trafficker. He was the one colluding with Cuba, protected by Cuba, in league with Iran to bring in drones and bombs and other things that could be used to commit terror attacks against the United States. So you cannot overstate, beyond the drug trafficking, just how dangerous Venezuela had become to Arkansans and to all Americans.
Yes, Senator, and that begs the question, now that we've gotten Maduro and his wife, Cecilia Flores, in custody, currently the Vice President, Delaney Rodriguez, has been sworn in as acting president. Of course, she and several other Maduro thugs are still running the government down there. Yet we have Maria Corina Macchiato, who is come out and said that she wants to build a very strong alliance and was the legitimate elected president. And then, of course, Maduro said that she couldn't be on the ballot because she had an administrative mistake when she served in the assembly or the national legislature there. So how do we go about reestablishing Venezuela into the lawful community of nations?
Well, I think the point that President Trump has made, that Secretary Rubio has made, is that in the short term, in the days and weeks ahead, we want to maintain stability and order in Venezuela. We don't want to see a total breakdown of society and see even bigger refugee flows, see drug traffickers take over parts of the territory. That's why they're working right now with Delcy Rodriguez. And we have all the leverage here, Steve. Their economy and their government essentially going to seize up very soon if they can't access oil export money. Mm-hmm. We can provide that to them in a way that goes to actually provide the services that we care about, that the police are paid, that the electricity and the water is working there. So you don't have that kind of breakdown of order and stability and the functioning of the society. So we have that leverage over them. But in the medium and the long term, we need to see a new government. We don't recognize this transition government. We need to see a new government, and we'd like that government to be chosen by free and fair elections for the Venezuelan people. Mm-hmm. That means that Ms. Machado and Mr. Gonzalez, who was her candidate and who beat Maduro in the election in 2024, and other members of the opposition parties who have been exiled should be allowed to come back to Venezuela in short order. and do so with guaranteed safe passage. That means that political prisoners in Venezuela right now should be released and reintegrated into society. There's also other things that Vice President Rodriguez can do to show that she means business. She's going to cooperate. She is going to help turn over a new page in Venezuelan history. For instance, they can kick out the Iranians and Hezbollah. That would be easy to do. Iran and Hezbollah has not been there for like Cuba has for 30 years. They're not deeply integrated into the structure of the government. They're some of the worst actors in Venezuela. She should kick them out immediately. If she takes some of these steps soon, it will show President Trump that, yes, she does intend to cooperate and move in the right direction for our interests. Much like we've allowed the former al-Qaeda operative, now president of Syria, to come in from the cold, not based on his words, but based on his actions, based on his demonstrated actions that he is going to cooperate with the United States as opposed to antagonize the United States. That's what we expect from this interim government. In the medium and long term, though, we expect the government of Venezuela to be in the hands of the Venezuelan people.
Yeah, that's perfect, Senator, and I appreciate your analysis on that. Now, I have one other concern, and I mentioned this to Patrick and said I wanted to close out the interview with this, is the end of this month, the continuing resolution after the Schumer shutdown of the federal government, the longest in our history, is about to expire. Can you update the folks here about how the budget bills are progressing, and do you think we're headed for another shutdown?
I'm cautiously optimistic that we won't. I know that caused a lot of disruption and hardship for Arkansans. The Democrats are making the right noises now. Not all of them. You can probably guess which ones, Steve. The hardcore lefties and the ones running for president already don't want to cooperate. They're happy to shut the government down again and blame it on Donald Trump. But there's definitely a critical mass of Democrats who don't want to put their hand on that stove again, who understand that it was a mistake for them to shut down the government, that it harmed their own people back home. I think the House is going to be taking up 3 of the 12 bills that we need each year to fund the government. We'll pass those, I hope, in short order. Remember, we already passed 3 in the legislation that opened the government. That gets us to 6. There's probably another 2 or 3 that we'd love to do by the end of January. And then the 3 or 4 most controversial ones, I wouldn't expect if we end up getting into a year-long stopgap measure like we did on some of them last year. But whatever we do, that would avert a government shutdown. There's no reason to shut down the government. I think the Democrats recognize the mistake they made back in October, and they don't want to go down that path again.
Yes, and hopefully some of them will, and this has now become an affectionate nickname for Senator Fetterman, but I call him Senator Uncle John Festerman. Couldn't help that if you're a fan of the Addams Family growing up. And again, he was the most reasonable voice on the Democrats, but I suppose, to borrow from Rush Limbaugh, Debbie Wasserman Schultz, or as Rush used to call her, Debbie Blabbermouth Schultz, I guess because she knows she's to a very tight election race with the candidate the Republicans recruited to run against her, and there's a lot of Venezuelans in her district as well. She came out fully supporting this as well, so maybe there's some hope.
There's a very, very small handful of Democrats who, as with Venezuela, recognize that the shutdown was ill-advised and they don't want to do it again. So kudos to them for realizing their mistakes and trying not to repeat them in the future.
Well, I appreciate that. And thank you very much, Senator, and we'll look forward to having you back on in the future to keep us updated.
All right. Thank you, Steve.
All right. Take care and have a good rest of the day. There he goes, everyone, Senator Tom Cotton.